What's up, y'all? My name is Justin Solis. I am an enterprise account executive in tech sales and an entrepreneur with over 9 years of experience. And the one thing that I've learned throughout my career is the only way to be a consistent top performer is to have a really good sales process. Sales is both art and science. That gift of gab, that ability to talk, that's the art piece. But the sales process, the science piece, is what really drives sellers and allows you to not just hit quota every now and then, but to hit it quarter after quarter. Today, I'm going to go over 7 tips and tricks to help you improve your sales process so you can consistently earn for your business or for the company that you work for. So starting with tip number 1, preparing to prospect. There are going to be many different companies or accounts that could potentially buy your product. But what you have to do as a seller is actually understand which of these are showing signals that would make you believe they have a higher likelihood to convert and focus on the ones that have the most signals. So for example, I sell HR software. So what things that I'm looking for are, do they have funding? Do they have money in the bank to actually buy my product? Do they have a decent HR team? If they have one HR stakeholder, that's not necessarily a good signal for me, right? I'm also going to look at things like their growth and understanding, is this a fast-growing company that would likely be willing to invest in software? Now, those signals that you're looking for will vary from business to business, but it's really important to outline those things. Once you have a good understanding of what those signals that you're looking for are, you want to start separating or tiering your accounts based on which ones possess the most of those signals. So if you've got 5 or 6 different things you're looking for, accounts that have all of them, those are going to be A tier accounts. Accounts that have more than half of those things, those will be B tier accounts. Accounts that have less than half, probably C, and accounts that only have 1 or 2 or none are ones you're going to want to disqualify. The reason why this is important is because you want to maximize your ROI and you want to make sure that you're focusing time on the accounts that have the highest likelihood to convert. So those A-tier accounts, you actually want to make sure that you're doing deep personalization and research on the prospects within those accounts before you reach out to them. With the Bs, you might maybe use some personalization at scale, maybe looking at certain things about the account that you can replicate across many. And then for your Cs, you kind of want to put those on autopilot. You don't want to spend a lot of time on Cs knowing that they have the least likelihood of conversion. So when it comes to A-tier accounts and doing that personalization, one of the keys is to research on the prospect, particularly the above the line or C-suite prospects, to make sure that you are going to be able to break through the noise and get them to respond to you. One thing I like to do is pull all of these folks into a spreadsheet, but it can be a pretty manual process. So Magical actually has a really cool feature called Transfer, where I can go and search for my prospects on LinkedIn, and then instead of having to manually enter their name, their company, what field they're in, etc., all that information that I would pull from LinkedIn, I can actually transfer over to a spreadsheet. Then I can create another column adjacent to that information where I can put in any other research notes that I'm finding. Then I can leverage that research, leverage that information to do that personalization for those A-tier accounts. Once I've rated my accounts, I've found the prospects, I've done the research, now it's time to actually start reaching out. So with prospecting, we always want to try to use multi-channel outreach using at least 3 channels. The 3 channels you always want to be using are email, phone, and social media. So when it comes to email, there's a few things that you want to consider. First of all, your subject lines. Subject lines should not be where you sell your product. They shouldn't be structured in a way that makes them look like a sales email. For example, capitalizing every word in there or writing out full sentences in subject lines. Those are going to be quickly identified by your prospects as sales emails and probably won't even get opened. So what I like to do is use all lowercase in some instances, or maybe 1 capital letter, to make it look like an internal email. And instead of trying to talk about my product, I'm going to talk about something that I know will resonate with my prospect. So if I was reaching out to a financial stakeholder like a CFO, for example, I might say, your next budget cycle or upcoming budget cycle. This is going to make them think that, hey, maybe this is from someone internally or another person that I know, as opposed to thinking that it's a sales email. Then when you get to the body of the email, that's where you start to do your selling. So a few tips there. Number 1, try to structure your email in a way that's easy to read. I like to use what's called a 3x3 format. What that means is 3 paragraphs, 3 sentences, easy on the eyes when you open it up in your browser. And then the way that you structure those 3 paragraphs is why you, why now? Why am I reaching out to you? Why is this relevant? Then a value prop with some social proof. So for example, talking about how the pain that you mentioned in that why you, why now relates to what your product solves, and then maybe mentioning another customer that uses it. If it's a customer that's in their field, even better. And then that last paragraph is where you're going to make your ask, whether that be for time or trying to gauge if they're actually interested in this. Now, writing good emails can be difficult, especially if you're trying to do it at scale and personalized based on this prospect information. So something that you can do is leverage Magical's AI Assist. I love using AI Assist. I can simply write a prompt in Magical, letting them know the information that I want them to leverage, and then Magical will actually write emails for me. Then I can tune them up a little bit, maybe make a few changes to the prompt with each different prospect, and now it's much easier for me to write personalized emails at scale to those A-tier accounts with those A-tier prospects. Aside from emails, another really great channel for outreach is cold calling. Now, most people hate cold calls, but that's actually a really good thing. Because most people don't like doing them and few people are making them on a regular basis, if you are willing to do that, that puts you into a minority and it's going to give you more opportunity. Now, when it comes to cold calls, what you don't want to do is call and say, hey, this is Justin from X company. The reason why is everyone makes cold calls like that. That opener is just going to make your prospect feel like you're a robot. And if you notice, in your regular life, people don't just curse people out or yell at strangers. But why is it that prospects are willing to do that to you on the phone? The reason is because they don't really feel like you're a human being. So what I like to do with my opener is humanize myself by using a humble disclaimer and gain permission by using a permission-based opener before I start pitching. So that will sound like, hey, honestly, this is a cold call. You probably hate getting them as much as I hate making them. Can I take 13 seconds to tell you why I'm calling? And if it's of no interest to you, you can hang up in my face. And normally when I say that, I'll do it with a little bit of a laugh. By asking permission, by humbling myself, by letting them know this is a cold call, I'm not enjoying this any more than you. And then asking permission to say what I want to say and getting that permission from them, I'm humanizing myself. It's also, like I said, important to throw in a little laugh there because once again, that reminds them that you're a human being. And the response that I almost always get is, okay, you got 13 seconds, or who are you and why are you calling? Which is exactly the question I want because that's what I want to talk about next. Now, when it comes to pitching, a big mistake that I see a lot of sellers make is they lead with product features or product value, but you're really taking a shot in the dark because you don't know if that's going to resonate with them, and you're probably going to be speaking in platitudes and tech jargon, which is not going to mean much. So what I like to do is always start with a pain. So for example, if I was selling to a CFO and I was selling budgeting software, I would say something like, hey Tim, we chat with a lot of other CFOs that tell us when it comes time to do budgets for merit cycles, it's really difficult because all the data lives in a bunch of different places. So what we do here at Pay is we actually connect with all of your various systems to bring that data into one place. Is that remotely interesting to you? So leading with the pain, then following up with the value, and then gauging interest. Now, the next piece is going to be objection handling. Most of the time, every objection is going to be around either budget, authority, need, or timing. We don't have the money. I'm not the person who makes this decision. We don't need this, or your timing is off. Now, the key to objection handling is you do not want to disagree with your prospect and try to prove them wrong. This creates an adversarial conversation with a winner and a loser, and you do not want to be in that situation. So how do you avoid it? Respond positively first. Let's say we're dealing with a need objection. Hey, Justin, sorry, we actually already have a budgeting tool. My first response is going to be, that's awesome you already see the value in procuring a tool like this. I'm curious to understand what tool you're using and how are you measuring the success of that tool? The reason that I'm saying it like that is A, I'm agreeing, and then B, I'm pivoting to another discovery question that is going to plant the seed around, is this the best tool for me? Is this tool actually working? And hopefully this will allow me to continue the conversation and get to the objection behind the objection or start to open up a conversation around maybe exploring other tools in the space. The third and final channel that you always want to be using with outreach is social. Depending on your business, this might be over LinkedIn or over Instagram. The big mistake that I see sellers making here is they do what's called pitch slapping. They copy and paste what is essentially the same thing that they're putting in their emails and putting that in direct messages over social media platforms. The problem is that social media is where people go to have more casual interactions. And so when you come at them in a really businessy type of way, it's going to alienate you in the same way that it does when you make cold calls like that. So what you should try to do is keep it casual, keep it short. And what I also recommend is before you start selling to a prospect that you've just connected with, try to build some value by giving them something without asking for anything in return. So something I like to do is send articles. I'd be like, hey Tim, was chatting with another CFO at X company who shared this article with me, thought you might find it interesting as well. Or maybe I'll find a case study from another product that's not competitive with my own and say, hey, was chatting with a few CFOs that told me they really like this product. I actually don't work for them, but I thought you might think it was cool, right? What I'm doing is I'm building trust, I'm building rapport, and I'm warming that prospect up for me to make my ask. And when I do make the ask, once again, always lead with pain, keep it short and sweet. And if you are on LinkedIn, I highly recommend using voice memos. Voice memos are great because there's no transcription. It just appears as a small blue bar with a play button, and that will pique their curiosity. And once again, you're humanizing yourself by using your own voice. Once you actually book that initial meeting from your prospecting, you're not ready to show your product yet. The reason is because the way that you frame your product is going to be different for every prospect based on discovery. Discovery is all about finding out what pains your prospect has and how they perceive them, so that when it comes time for the next step, which is doing a demo, you're going to be able to tailor that demo to how they feel and how they think. So the key to discovery is always ask open-ended questions. You do not want to ask questions that could be answered with a yes or a no, You want to ask questions in a way that get your prospect to expound, right? So instead of saying, are you happy with your budgeting software today? Which I could say, yes, I am, or no, I'm not. I say, tell me more about your budgeting software today, right? So open-ended questions are going to lead to more of your prospect talking. Ideally, in discovery, you want there to be a talk ratio of at least a 60-40 or preferably a 70-30, meaning that 60 or 70% of the time, it is your prospect talking. The more you can get your prospect to talk and open up in discovery, the better off you'll be. The other piece of discovery that's really important is you want to get to the depth of the problem behind the problem, right? So what do I mean by that? Oftentimes, when you ask prospects questions, they'll give you very surface level answers. You want to ask them to tell you more about that, or you want to ask them, what is the effect of that current state? This is going to get them to think more and explain more so that you can have more than just surface level problems, because those aren't things that people spend money to solve. People spend money to solve business impacts, things that solve business impacts. And so you got to get to business impact, not just operational surface level pain. And so when you start your discovery and you get that operational surface level pain, make sure you always dig deeper. So now you've done your discovery and you're ready to demo your product. When you're demoing, no two demos should ever be the same. The reason is you should leverage your discovery to dictate what you're going to show in your demo. Something that I see a lot of sellers do, they kind of just run the same demo every time and they'll show every feature of their product. Believe it or not, I've had multiple prospects who I've done that to earlier in my career who end up saying, this product seems too robust for me. This product seems great, but I don't think I need all this. What's really important is focusing on what you learned in discovery and tying the pieces of your product that address those pains specifically. And whenever you're getting to that point in the product where you're talking about a pain that they mentioned in discovery, twist the knife. You want to remind them, hey, Jeff, you mentioned X problem. Just want to point out this is the part of the product that actually solves that for you. What do you think? Get feedback as you're giving the demo as well, so that you can get them to reconfirm that this is what they need. Now, you finish your demo, it's successful, your prospect loves it, you're ready to sign, right? Not quite yet. If you're selling to companies that have multiple stakeholders that can make buying decisions and you have only one person that you're talking to, imagine that they love it, but then they get vetoed by their boss. The key is you have to multi-thread. You have to actually get other stakeholders involved in this process. In order to do that, you have to do what's called getting your prospect on the same side of the table as you. It has to be you and me versus them, right? And so the way that you do that is you have to get your prospect to admit that you are their vendor of choice and that you're the tool that they want. So if you've done good discovery and you've demoed effectively, you should ask them, hey, listen, let's say this was free. Compared to all the stuff you've looked at, is this the one that you'd want to buy? And if they say that, now you know that they are leaned in. Now you've got them to explicitly admit that this product is the one that they want. You need to explain to them that if they don't let you talk to their boss, or if they don't bring in other stakeholders, that what they want is at risk. So I like to say something to the effect of, look, honestly, I'm no stranger to this economy. I know that this is a tool that you want, but what I've been seeing is that oftentimes CFOs don't really have as keen of an understanding as you might of why this product is valuable, and they're going to be pretty likely to nix it, especially given that we're a more expensive product in the landscape. I'm curious if you'd be opposed to actually looping in and call them out by name, Jeff, Tim, Susan, whomever, into our next meeting. They'll probably be initially resistant because they're worried about putting themselves in the line, and executives or people who are above the line tend to be extremely busy. So what I like to do is say, why don't we work together to come up with things that you think will be relevant for your boss to create a really pointed demo? We don't have to go through all the stuff you and I went through today. Rather, let's do something that'll take less time, but we know is going to be effective so that we can get you this tool that you want. After every single encounter that you have with your prospects, it is so important that you recap what happened and that you talk about next steps in a follow-up email. Now, the reason why a lot of sellers don't write follow-up emails every single time is because it's a pain. It takes a while. So what I like to do is leverage Magical to create follow-up templates that I can actually use keyboard shortcuts to just simply put into my email and quickly follow up with prospects right after the demo ends with a quick recap of what we talked about and then also what those next steps are to drive velocity in my deal. Velocity is key. Time kills all deals, and so you want to make sure that you're constantly moving forward and that you've got everyone on the same page by executing follow-ups effectively. So once you've multi-threaded, you've got multiple stakeholders to sign off. The last thing that you want to do is what I call the 5-minute drill. You want to understand, do you want to buy? When do you want to buy? And how do you want to buy? So if you've already gotten that vendor of choice question out of the way, you know that they want to buy. Now, it's really important to understand how they buy. Every single buyer has different processes, different approvals, different InfoSec or security reviews. And if you don't find out about that early, it might come and bite you later. You might forecast that you're going to close this deal in 2 weeks and you don't find out about how it works with their legal review. And all of a sudden you're going to be doing back and forth with legal teams for 3 or 4 weeks and you won't land your deal on target So ask them about the last time they bought software. Ask them how long it took. Ask them who they expect to be involved in the process from this point forward. That's all questions that you want to have that's going to let you know how they want to buy. And then when they want to buy is super critical, because you need to understand, is there a timeline associated with this? So something that I'll often ask is, when do you want to have this implemented? Is there something coming up on the horizon that you need the solution for, right? You want to be able to tie what you're offering to some sort of timetable so that you know that there's a when they want to buy. So just to recap, preparing the prospect, make sure that you tier your accounts. Focus on the ones where you're going to have the most ROI, ones that present the most signals of accounts that will turn. And when you're actually pulling in prospects, make sure you do research for your A-tier accounts, and you can leverage Magical to pull those into spreadsheets. When you're prospecting, always make sure that you're doing emails, cold calls, and social outreach. Multi-channel is key. And if you're having trouble writing emails, particularly if you want to personalize at scale, you can use Magical's AI Assist, simply adding some prompts to help you write a bunch of emails for folks that are going to be highly personalized based on your prompt. Next is discovery. Make sure you always find pain before you frame your product. When you do your demo, make sure that you're leveraging discovery to show them the things that are most relevant to them. Always multi-thread. Don't trust that a singular stakeholder will be able to get it done. Try to get as many stakeholders involved as possible. Always follow up after every step so that you can keep velocity in your deals. And then always make sure that you know, do you want to buy? How do you want to buy? And when do you want to buy? So that you could avoid any potential pitfalls in late stage deals. So those are my 7 tips and tricks for improving your sales process. Give them a try. Let me know how it goes.